got halfway through this problem in the last video and got to the point where we found that the least common denominator was x plus 1 and x plus 2. So to remove fractions, we are going to multiply both sides by x plus 1 and x minus 2. So that will put x plus 1 and x minus 2 in the numerators. And when we do that, we see that the x plus 1's cancel over here, and the x minus 2's cancel over here. So what we are left with is this x minus 2 and this 2, and over here we are left with this x plus 1. So we get 2 times x minus 2 equals x plus 1. We distribute the 2 and get 2x minus 4 equals x plus 1. We subtract an x from both sides and get x minus 4 equals 1. And we add 4 to both sides to get the x by itself, and we find that x equals 5. Okay, we need to look back up here and make sure that x is not one of these unallowed answers. And it isn't, so that means 5 is a valid answer. It may not be a correct one, but it is valid. It's not going to make the problem undefined. So let's check it. We're going to go back up here and plug 5 in for x. 2 over 5 plus 1 should equal 1 over 5 minus 2. 2 6 equals 1/3. That's true when you reduce it, so therefore x equals 5. In the next problem, we have 1 over x plus 3 plus 1 over x minus 3 equals 1 over x squared minus 9. First, let's look at our denominators and find out what x is not allowed to be. So what will make this denominator 0? That would be negative 3. X cannot be negative 3. Here, x cannot be 3. And so when we plug that in, also need to know about x squared minus 9. Well, let's notice that x squared minus 9 is a difference of squares. And so that's x squared minus 3 squared. So the formula for that is you can factor it by adding the roots and subtracting the roots. And so you see we have x plus 3 and x minus 3 just like these. So x is not allowed to be 3 or negative 3, or it will make all of those denominators 0. Also, since this denominator is x plus 3, x minus 3, we see that each of these denominators goes into this. So that means our least common denominator is x plus 3 times x minus 3. So let's rewrite these by multiplying each one by our least common denominator. Our first fraction, here's the least common denominator instead of 1, here it is instead of 1, and here it is instead of 1. That was easy. Now all we have to do is cancel. X plus 3 leaves x minus 3. X minus 3 leaves x plus 3. And x plus 3's cancels, x minus 3's cancel. That means we have a 1 over there. So we have this x minus 3 here plus x plus 3 here equals 1. Very simple equation now. X plus x is 2x, minus 3 plus 3 is 0, and 1 on the right. So dividing both sides by 2, we get x equals 1/2. We look back up here and we see that x can't equal negative 3 or 3, but 1/2 is okay. So that is our answer. Here's a student favorite, a boat problem. Tori and Emilio's motorboats travel at the same speed. Tori goes 40 kilometers before docking. Emilio continues for another 2 hours, traveling a total of 100 kilometers before docking. How long did it take Tori to navigate the 40 kilometers? Okay, we use the formula distance equals rate times time and set up a chart. Distance, rate, and time. What do we know? Let's write, I put Troy, but it's Tori. Let's write Tori and Emilio. We know that Tori went 40 kilometers and Emilio went 100 kilometers, so that takes care of the distance. we don't know the rate yet, and we're not asked for it, but we don't know it, so we're going to put X for rate. And we don't know the time, so we're going to put a little t for Tori's time, but Emilio goes 2 hours more than Tori, so his time is t plus 2. And the question is, how long did it take Tori? In other words, what is t right there? Okay, distance equals rate times time. So let's write some equations over here. 40 is our distance, rate is x, time is t. 40 equals x times time. The second equation is 100 equals x times t plus 2. Okay, now we are going to use substitution to take care of this x here by saying that if we divide both sides by t, we get x by itself, and x equals 40 over t. So instead of x, we're putting 40 over t here. We get 100 equals 40 over t times t plus 2. Now you could multiply both sides by t to get rid of that t, or you could go ahead and distribute, which we'll do. 100 equals 40 over t times t, or t over 1, is going to be 40t over t, and the t's are going to cancel. So we distribute here and make the t's cancel, and we also take this and distribute here. 2 over 1 times 40 over t is going to be 80 over t, and nothing cancels. Okay, so that gives us 100 is 40 plus 80 over t. Let's subtract 40 from both sides, and we will get that. Let's do it this way. And we get that 60 equals 80 over t. Let's multiply both sides by t. So we're going to multiply this by t and this by t over 1 since it's a fraction. And our t's will cancel, and we get 60t equals 80. So now we just divide both sides by 60, and t equals 80 over 60, which reduces to 4/3 hour. Now I like to check that to make sure it's correct. So in order to do that, I need to figure out what the rate is. T is 4/3. We know that we're going to figure out the rate, which is x. What is x? So let me do it this way. 40 equals rate times time, which is x times t, which is x times 4/3. Let's get rid of that fraction by multiplying both sides by 3. 3 times 40 over here, and let me write it here. And 3 over 1 over here, so the 3's cancel, and we get 3 times 40 equals x times 4. That gives us 120, and we divide both sides by 4, and that gives us 120 over 4, which is 30. So x should equal 30, and we can check that. We can plug it in again to our first equation, which is here 40 equals x times t, and we get 40 should equal 30 times 4/3. 30 and t was 4/3, and it does. 40 equals 40. The second equation is 100 equals x times t plus 2. So 100 equals x, which is 30, times t, which is 4/3, plus 2. But we need to get 2 into a fraction, so we're going to make it a fraction, 2 over 1 times 3 over 3, so that it has the same denominator as the 4/3. So that gives us 30 times 4/3 plus 2 times 3 is 6 over 3, and that gives us 30 before it's scratched out. And then you keep the denominator and add the numerators, and then we're going to change that 30 to a fraction so that we can deal with fractions. So we have 30 over 1 times 10 over 3. 3 goes into 30 10 times, and we have 1 on the bottom, which is the same as 10 times 10, which is 100. Let me circle these. So 100, and that's what we were hoping it would equal, so that checks. Now note The question asks for T, so the answer is 4/3. It is not 30. Okay, here is a work problem. Vern can shovel snow in 45 minutes from his driveway. It takes Nina 60 minutes to do it. And the question is, if they work together, how long would it take them? So let's make some statements. We're going to use V for the time it takes Vern, which is 45 minutes. N is the time it takes Nina, which is 60 minutes. And T, capital T, is the time working together. We have a formula you need to memorize. 1 over Vern's time plus 1 over Nina's time equals 1 over the time that they work together. So plugging in numbers, we get 1 over 45 plus 1 over 60 equals 1 over T. That's a lot of fractions. We want to get rid of the fractions, so we need to find the least common denominator. So one of our denominators has 45 in it, one has 60, and one has T. All right, here's a way to do this that is thorough and easy. You break 45 down to its primes. So here's a factoring tree. You start out with 45, and you know that 45 is 9 times 5. 5 is prime. Can't go any further. 9 is 3 times 3. So 45 equals 3 times 3, which is 3 squared times 5. So that's what I have here. And it's important to put it in exponents. 60, if you do a factoring tree, you'll get 2 squared times 3 times 5. To find our least common denominator, we circle the largest occurrence of each number. So 3 shows up in both cases. We circle the one with the largest exponents and cross out the other one. 2 doesn't show up except in one place, so circle it. And 5 shows up in both places, so circle one, cross out the other. Our least common denominator, and then we have T. T cannot be forgotten, so we put it there. Our least common denominator is everything we've got circled. 2 squared times 3 squared times 5 times T, which works out to be 180 T. So that's a nice little trick to figuring out least common denominators. Let's multiply every fraction by 180t. So we'll put it as a fraction, 180t over 1 times each one, like that. And then we'll cancel. 45 goes into 180 4 times. 60 goes into 180 3 times. And t's cancel here. So that leaves us with 4t plus 3t equals 180. Very nice. It gets rid of all of our fractions. Adding the t's, we get 7t equals 180. So divide by 7 and t equals 180 over 7 minutes. Problem has to do with estimating the number of trout in a lake. Now the part of the trout that were tagged just now that they caught is 32, and the total trout they caught was 82. Originally, they had 112 tagged fish, and they don't know the total population of the lake. So they're comparing this smaller sample to find out the larger one. All you do here is you cross multiply. 32x equals 112 times 82. Divide both sides by 32. So 112 times 82 divided by 32 turns out to be 287. That's a dandy little estimate that there are a total of 287 trout in the lake. That's the end of this review for Test 4. Good luck.